We're very interested in knowing whether or not fodder can substitute for grain, because that's 31 cents per dry matter pound. Fodder we can produce for 6 cents per dry matter. Yeah, so anyway, there's a huge price differential there, but we have to feed a lot more fodder. The question is, how much fodder do we need to feed in order to substitute for the parlor grain? And essentially what we did was we tracked milk production and we tracked milk components, and then we priced them out and look at the economic return, because we do get paid on components. So we assessed just what those changes were. We were higher in fat in the two fodder groups, but we were lower in milk. But if you look at the overall, we returned slightly more money in the fodder groups. Question is, whether your dairy, in your situation, you can be economical at it. Only you can answer that. For our situation, I know what our price at our seed has to be in order for that to be an economical process. So it gave us more questions than answers. And really the big elephant, the big thing that needs to be answered is what's going on in the rumen. Because it's that rumen microecology that makes milk, that converts the grass to beef and to milk. And that's where we make our money. So we want to know more about what the impact is of fodder on the rumen microecology. We want to know if it's going to make that rumen more efficient. Are we going to be able to get more milk out of the feed that we feed? Can we feed lower quality feed? These are all great ways to make more money in the dairy industry. So we think transitions is important, and we've been talking about that. I think, the dry cow period's the period to do the acclimation. Let her calve on fodder, or let her calve on grain, and then follow those cows throughout an entire lactation, because there's more ways to make money in the dairy industry than with milk production, right? Certainly components and milk yield, but we're missing, so much more. It's all the other things that it's very difficult to put a financial, number on. Reproductive fertility, right? Herd health. Incidence of mastitis, incidence of lameness, all of those things factor in. And the guys, the dairymen that are feeding fodder are telling me that the coats on those cows are just, they luster. And if that's the case, then we know that the vitamins which are in fodder must be playing a role there as well. What are the impacts? We want to track that economically, because I'm a German farmer at heart. I always have been. I want to know the money part of it, as well as the biology. So that's where we're going with our program, and I took way too long, but that's basically what we're doing. That's where we're going. And we are funded for next year to do the digestibility work, and then we're going to be working on cobbling together our financing so that we can do the life cycle assessment.
Go ahead. Any questions out there? Here's one right here. Kyle, get him the microphone. Hold on one second, sir.
What percent fodder can you feed? Is it 100%? Or the other question would be, how much dry matter do you need to add?
Are we talking about cattle? You're talking about cattle? Okay. What we do on our farm is that we feed 1 biscuit per cow. And that could be a lactating cow or a cow that is pregnant at the time. And we just keep dry matter out in front of them, or they're on a pasture, depending on what time of the year it is. It doesn't require a tremendous amount of dry matter. Hay, yes, sir. We grow our own hay and organic
alfalfa
hay.
Or grain hay?
We do alfalfa, and then we also do like sweet sorghum, and then in the winter we do a winter mix that's barley, oats, rye, and wheat.
That is in the form of the hay also?
Yes, sir, except for we just graze it during the winter is what we do. And that's plenty. In fact, one of the things that just happened is at the end of our hay season, our summer hay season, we allow the cows to go out into the alfalfa field and take everything down. And then after they're done, we go in and drill in the winter. And this year, because we were using an effective microorganism in our fields, we were feeding fodder and they had the alfalfa. It was incredible what happened to our calves and our cows. I mean, the cows were about as wide as they were tall, and that was only a month of the grazing. We were giving them probably more feed than they actually needed, but I mean, that's what it can do for them. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, Jack, that's a good question. The possibilities with the fodder have been pretty unique for us. When we first started using the machine in May, we had a pretty healthy irrigated pasture system, and we used the fodder to be able to increase the numbers on our pastures. We did that approximately about 10%. But I think the overall amount of fodder per head was like 2 or 3 pounds a piece. It wasn't a lot, but it made a good difference in the carrying capacity on our pasture. Now we wean the calves off these cows, and we move the cows on the winter range, and the calves are still on this pasture. We're feeding them more of the fodder now to maintain them until the rain starts the winter feed going on our winter pasture. So to me, it's got all kinds of possibilities. I really think that in our grass finishing program, we could actually do a 60-70% fodder ration and fatten these calves up to slaughter weight pretty efficiently. And that's our next step in our experiment. So
I've got questions for all of you, but I'll just ask Darla, what quality of seed are you using?
We're using a pretty high quality seed. It's an organic seed, and it was developed by the University of Arizona because we are a desert state, and it was designed to create a longer, stronger root to reach water in the desert. And what we have found, and we have tried every seed you could possibly imagine, we run tests constantly, and what we found is that this particular seed, we get just 100% germination. It's rated to be 90, but we never get any seed falling out. We get a root bed that's just incredible. Our root bed is at least a couple of inches.
Is it a malted barley?
No, it's 6-row, isn't it? Yeah, 6-row. It's solar. It's spelled like solar, but said solar.
And then the other question would be, could you explain the microbes?
The effective Okay. We ran across a guy who'd been a farmer all of his life, and he was starting to sell and to farmers and hydroponic users this effective microorganisms that were developed in Japan. And he approached us and asked what we were feeding our cattle, how we were feeding them, and he came out to the ranch, and we did kind of a soil test, and we went around digging up roots and looking at everything, and then we decided to go with the effective microorganisms on our hay fields. So every week we would go and dig up the roots of different plants, and we would see what kind of results we were getting. Well, what happened is that we went from a taproot on our alfalfa to a taproot with numerous feeder roots. And we started seeing growth, health, everything started changing on our fields. And at that time, we were probably getting 3/4 to a ton per acre. And this went on for about 3 months, and every week he would come out and we would dig the roots up, and we just kept getting more feeder roots. So after about 3 months of this, I said, Bill, what do you think would happen if I put this in the fodder boxes? And he said, well, it isn't going to hurt anything. And he said, it's really healthy for the cows. So I started with 1/4 cup, and we were using the standard 2 3/3 cup of seed. And we started with 1/4 cup, and on the morning of the 7th day, we took the scale out, and we basically increased our weight by 3 pounds just using a quarter of a cup of this effective microorganisms every day. So then about 3 weeks ago, I had this big idea that I was going to run an even bigger test. So we have the two T126s, so we took, and it's divided into thirds. So we took a third, we did 2 pounds of seed, 2 1/3 pound of seed, and we kept our standard 2 3/4. And what we did was we increased the effective microorganisms to a half of a cup. The 2 pound of seed yield 21.77 pounds average. The 2 1/3 cup was 26 pounds, and the 2 3/4 averaged 27.6. But what we found out is that we had so much growth on the 2 3/4 cup that the biscuit was hot to the touch. It was just growing so fast that it just couldn't get any air around it, and the water couldn't escape. And we found a little bit of mold in it. So basically, from this, what we got out of it is that we're cutting back to 2 1/3 cups. We're going to get a 26-pound biscuit, and the most wonderful part of this story is a year's supply of EM for a T126 is $30. So we're saving $8,000 in the cost of our seed per year, and we're gaining 116,000 pounds of growth.
My question goes back to about the meat quality. Since marbling does add flavor, do you guys have, I mean, I understand that fodder grows muscle, so your meat's probably very lean and very tender, but do you have any input on how the actual flavor, because in America that's very important to people when they buy beef.
I ate beef in the 50s and the 60s, and I can only tell you that flavor today is beyond the even tenderness. There are the two factors that are the most important to the American consumer, and they're willing to pay for it. I will tell you in testimonials from people who have eaten our beef, because we sell at the farmer's market, they say it reminds them of beef you ate in the 40s and 50s, untreated, unflavored with injection beef. And they say the smell when it cooks is beyond anything that you have ever eaten today. And there is no water content that comes off of our ground beef. There is no grease, because that makes it another type of a smell. So the flavor is just, it's just really unbelievable. And we have tons of testimonials. And the other thing that's really important, I think, that you talk about in the natural grass-fed beef, because that's what we sell, is we have many people who have health conditions who are coming to our booth and they are saying, I cannot eat beef anymore because it keeps me up at night. It makes I have a sick stomach. I just can't sleep. So they're finding that they can eat our beef and actually go to bed at night and not get indigestion from it. I mean, it's just so different. And then we have people who have rheumatoid arthritis. They're coming and they're saying, this is changing things for me. We have a woman who has an autistic child. She is saying she's 3 years old. She can do numbers. She can do alphabet. She has switched her to an all-natural diet plus our beef. It's not a panacea for everything, but when you see children maturing at 11 years old, that is not right. That is just not metabolically right, nor it's not right. And when I have families that come, they are adamant that they're going to switch to this type of beef.